Do-hyun Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last cargo container into his ship. Another boring day of hauling supplies between Mars colonies and asteroid mining stations. The year 2387 had brought humanity many things, but excitement was not one of them for cargo pilots like him. His small transport ship, the Red Eagle, was nothing special. Just another working vessel in the vast network of human trade routes that stretched across 17 solar systems. Do-hyun had been flying these same routes for 3 years now, ever since he turned 21 and got his pilot license. The work was simple but lonely. Load cargo, fly to destination, unload cargo, repeat. Sometimes he would talk to other pilots at refueling stations, but most conversations were about fuel prices or shipping schedules. Nothing that made his heart race or his mind wonder about bigger things. As he settled into the pilot seat and started the pre-flight check, his communication system beeped with an incoming message. The sender ID showed only a string of numbers and letters that meant nothing to him. Do-hyun almost deleted it, thinking it was another advertisement for engine upgrades or cheap meal packets. But something made him hesitate. The message had an encryption level he had never seen before. Most cargo pilots used basic communication channels that anyone could intercept. This message was different. It was locked behind security protocols that looked military-grade. Do-hyun entered his pilot credentials and waited. The message slowly decoded itself, revealing text that made his hands shake slightly as he read. Do-hyun Kim, grandson of Min-ho Kim, you are hereby informed that your grandfather has left you property in his final will and testament. The inheritance consists of one residential estate located at coordinates 847 Tau 233.891 in the Kepler 442b system. Please report to the designated location within 30 standard days to claim your inheritance. This message will self-delete in 60 seconds. Do-hyun stared at the screen. His grandfather Min-ho had been missing for 17 years. The old man had disappeared when Do-hyun was only 7 years old, leaving behind only vague memories of bedtime stories about distant stars and adventures in space. The official records said that Min-ho Kim had been a simple merchant who traded rare minerals between colonies. He had vanished during what authorities called a routine business trip to the outer systems. No wreckage was ever found. No distress signal was ever received. One day he was there, and the next day he was gone. Do-hyun's parents had told him that Grandpa Min-ho was probably dead, killed by pirates or lost in a navigation accident. They had held a memorial service and moved on with their lives. But young Do-hyun had always wondered what really happened to the old man who used to tell such amazing stories. Now, 17 years later, a message was claiming that his grandfather had left him something. But how could a dead man leave an inheritance? And why had it taken so long for anyone to contact him? The message vanished from his screen exactly 60 seconds after it appeared, just as promised. But Do-hyun had memorized the coordinates. Kepler 442b was in the neutral zone, a region of space that existed between the territories of 3 different alien species. It was not a place where humans usually went. Over the next 3 days, Do-hyun could not stop thinking about the message. He completed his current cargo run on autopilot, his mind focused on his grandfather and the mysterious inheritance. Finally, he made a decision that surprised even himself. He filed a request for extended leave with his shipping company, claiming he needed time to handle family business. It was not entirely a lie. Then he loaded the Red Eagle with enough supplies for a long journey and set course for the coordinates in the message. The trip to Kepler 442b took 6 days of faster-than-light travel. as Do-hyun's ship dropped out of hyperspace near the planet. He was amazed by what he saw. The world was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of pictures of ancient Earth. But it was also completely empty of any signs of civilization. According to his navigation computer, the coordinates from the message pointed to a location on the planet's largest continent. Do-hyun guided his ship through the atmosphere and landed in a clearing surrounded by tall trees that looked almost like the pines from Earth's history books. As he stepped out of his ship, the first thing he noticed was how quiet everything was. No city sounds, no traffic, no voices. Just the gentle wind through the trees and the distant call of some kind of bird. The air was clean and fresh, unlike the recycled atmosphere of space stations and colony domes. Do-hyun walked toward the coordinates, expecting to find maybe a small cabin or a storage building. What he found instead made him stop and stare in disbelief. Rising from the forest floor was a house that seemed to belong in a dream. It was large, maybe 3 stories tall, with walls that appeared to be made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow softly in the afternoon sunlight. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen, with curves and angles that somehow made his eyes want to follow them around and around. But the strangest thing about the house was that it seemed to shift slightly when he was not looking, directly at it. When he focused on the front door, the building looked solid and real. But when he glanced at it from the corner of his eye, parts of it seemed to fade in and out, as if the house existed in several different places at the same time. As Do-hyun approached the front door, which was made of dark wood with strange symbols carved into its surface, something incredible happened. The symbols began to glow with a soft blue light, and he heard a voice that seemed to come from the air around him. "Welcome, Do-hyun Kim," the voice said in perfect Korean. "Biometric scan complete. Genetic markers confirmed. You are recognized as the heir of the Starbringer. Please enter your inheritance." The front door swung open without him touching it, revealing a hallway filled with warm light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Despite every instinct telling him to be careful, Do-hyun stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door closed behind him, and he heard his grandfather's voice for the first time in 17 years. "Hello, my boy," the familiar voice said. "If you are hearing this, then I am gone. And the time has come for you to learn the truth about our family, about humanity, and about the great secret that I have been keeping safe for you." Do-hyun looked around and saw a holographic projection of his grandfather standing in the hallway, looking exactly as he remembered from childhood. The old man smiled and gestured for him to follow. "Come, Do-hyun. We have much to discuss and not much time. The galaxy needs you more than you know." Do-hyun followed the holographic image of his grandfather through corridors that seemed to stretch longer than the house should have allowed. The walls were covered with displays showing star maps, alien writing, and images of space battles that looked like nothing he had ever seen in history books. "Grandpa," Do-hyun said, his voice echoing strangely in the hallway. "How is this possible? Everyone said you were dead." The hologram turned and smiled sadly. "In many ways, I was dead to the world I knew. I had to disappear, Do-hyun. There were things I needed to protect. Secrets that could not be allowed to fall into the wrong hands. Sit down, my boy. What I am about to tell you will change everything you think you know about humanity." They entered a large room filled with comfortable chairs and a massive window that looked out onto the forest. But as Do-hyun sat down, the window changed, showing not trees, but images of space, distant galaxies, and alien worlds he did not recognize. "Tell me," his grandfather's image said. "What do you know about the history of humanity in space?" Do-hyun thought for a moment. "We joined the Galactic Council about 300 years ago. The alien races welcomed us and helped us spread across the stars. They protect us from dangerous threats while we provide trade and cultural exchange. We are like the younger members of a big family." His grandfather nodded slowly. "That is what everyone believes. That is what the history books teach. But it is not the truth." The window display changed, showing images of human ships that looked nothing like the peaceful cargo vessels and colony transports Do-hyun knew. These ships were massive, angular, and covered with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. 300 years ago, his grandfather continued, humanity was not the peaceful junior member of the Galactic Council. We were the most feared military force in known space. When an enemy from outside our galaxy threatened to destroy all life, it was not the aliens who saved everyone. It was us. Do-hyun stared at the images. "That's impossible. Humans are not warriors. We are explorers and traders." "Look closer," his grandfather said. The display showed a battle unlike anything Do-hyun had ever imagined. Creatures that looked like living shadows were pouring out of tears in space itself, consuming entire star systems. Against them fought human fleets using weapons that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. Ships disappeared and reappeared behind enemy lines. Weapons fired beams that made enemy vessels simply stop existing. They called themselves the Void Swarm, his grandfather explained. They came from a dimension where nothing exists except hunger. They wanted to consume our entire galaxy, to turn all matter and energy into nothing. The alien races of the Galactic Council were helpless against them. The images showed alien fleets being destroyed effortlessly by the shadow creatures. Entire civilizations vanishing in days. Panic spreading across the galaxy as world after world went silent. "But then humanity joined the fight," his grandfather said, "and everything changed." The display showed human forces arriving at battle sites. But these were not the humans Do-hyun knew. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they could read each other's minds. Their tactics were so advanced that they seemed to know what the enemy would do before the enemy knew it themselves. "We did not just fight the Void Swarm," his grandfather said quietly. "We terrified them. Our weapons were so effective, our strategy so ruthless, that we drove them back to their own dimension and sealed the gateway behind them. We saved the galaxy." Do-hyun shook his head. "If that's true, why don't we remember? Why aren't humans honored as heroes?" His grandfather's expression grew even sadder. "Because the aliens were not just grateful to us, Do-hyun. They were afraid of us. They had seen what humanity could become when we were truly unleashed, so they made us an offer." The window showed images of a great meeting between human leaders and representatives of dozens of alien species. "They offered us peace," his grandfather said. "Comfortable lives spread across the galaxy, protection from future threats. All we had to do was agree to forget what we had been. They would help us modify our own genetics to suppress our natural abilities. They would rewrite our history books. In exchange, we would become the peaceful traders and explorers you know today." "And humanity agreed to this?" Do-hyun asked, feeling sick. "Most of us did. The war had been terrible. Many humans had died. The leaders thought that maybe it was better to be safe and peaceful than to remain the galaxy's apex predators. But some of us disagreed." The display changed again, showing a group of humans in what looked like ancient armor. Do-hyun recognized his grandfather among them, looking much younger. "We called ourselves the Guardians," his grandfather said. "We refused the genetic modifications. We kept copies of the real history. We maintained secret arsenals and training facilities. We prepared for the day when humanity might need its true strength again." Do-hyun stood up and walked to the window. The images were overwhelming. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because the void swarm is returning," his grandfather said simply. The window went dark for a moment, then showed recent news reports that Do-hyun recognized. Ships disappearing without trace, colony stations going silent, rescue teams finding empty buildings with no signs of struggle, as if people had simply vanished mid-sentence. "The attack started 3 months ago," his grandfather said. "The Galactic Council is calling them equipment failures or pirate raids. But I know better. The signs are the same as they were 300 years ago." Do-hyun felt cold despite the warm room. "What does this have to do with me?" "You are my heir, Do-hyun. You carry the genetic markers of the original humans before the modifications. In your blood is the potential to become what humanity once was. But more than that, you are the key to the greatest secret of all." His grandfather gestured toward a door at the far end of the room. It was made of the same dark wood as the front door, but this one was covered in symbols that seemed to move and shift when Do-hyun looked at them. "Behind that door is the arsenal of Earth," his grandfather said. "The most powerful weapons humanity ever created. The tools we used to drive back the void swarm the first time. They are waiting for someone worthy to claim them." "Why me?" Do-hyun asked. "I'm just a cargo pilot. I don't know how to fight wars or save galaxies." His grandfather smiled. "Neither did I when my time came. Neither did any of us. But we learned, because we had to. The door will only open for someone with unmodified human genetics who faces a genuine threat to humanity's survival. For 300 years, it has remained locked." As if responding to his words, the symbols on the door began to glow faintly. "The door is awakening," his grandfather said. "It senses that the time of peace is ending. Soon, you will have to choose, Do-hyun. You can return to your simple life as a cargo pilot and hope that the Galactic Council can protect humanity from what is coming. Or you can open that door and discover what humans are truly capable of." The hologram began to fade. "I have prepared other recordings to help guide you. Look for others like yourself, descendants of the Guardians. You will know them when you meet them. And remember, my boy, the greatest strength of humanity was never our weapons or our tactics. It was our refusal to give up, even when all hope seemed lost." The image of his grandfather disappeared, leaving Do-hyun alone in the room. Outside the window, the forest looked peaceful and quiet. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, an ancient enemy was stirring, and the fate of the galaxy once again rested in human hands. The door at the end of the room pulsed with soft light, as if it were breathing. Waiting. Do-hyun walked toward it slowly, knowing that his life as a simple cargo pilot was over. Whatever lay behind that door, whatever he was about to become, there was no going back now. He reached out and touched the glowing symbols and felt something deep inside. Himself begin to awaken. Do-hyun spent 3 days in his grandfather's house, watching the recorded messages and trying to understand everything he had learned. The more he discovered, the more questions filled his mind. But on the 4th day, his communication system received an emergency broadcast that made his blood run cold. "This is Europa Station calling all ships in the area," the panicked voice said. We have lost contact with sections 7 through 12. Security teams report finding empty corridors with no signs of struggle. Personal belongings left behind. Meals half-eaten, but no people anywhere. Please respond if anyone can hear this message. Do-hyun knew Europa Station well. It was one of the largest mining facilities in the Jupiter system, home to over 50,000 people. His best friend Woo-jin Lee worked there as a technical specialist, maintaining the computers that controlled the mining operations. Without hesitation, Do-hyun ran to his ship and began the startup sequence. As the Red Eagle lifted off from the forest planet, he tried to contact Woo-jin directly. The communication system connected, but the response made him grip the controls tighter. Do-hyun, thank the stars you called. Woo-jin's voice was shaking. Something terrible is happening here. People are just disappearing, not dying, not leaving, just vanishing like they never existed. I'm coming to get you, Do-hyun said. Pack whatever you need and meet me at Docking Bay 7. You don't understand, Woo-jin replied. The disappearances started in the outer sections, but they're moving inward. My family lives in Section 9. I went to check on them this morning, and the entire residential block was empty. Doors unlocked, lights still on, food still cooking on stoves, but no people. Do-hyun pushed his ship faster than he had ever pushed it before. The journey from Kepler 442b to Jupiter normally took 4 days, but he made it in 3 by running, his engines at dangerous levels. When he arrived at Europa Station, the sight that greeted him was unlike anything in his worst nightmares. The massive space station was dark in several sections. Docking bays that should have been busy with cargo ships were empty and silent. The few ships that remained were leaving as quickly as possible. Do-hyun found Woo-jin waiting at the designated docking bay with a small pack of belongings and the expression of complete terror on his face. 40% of the station is empty now, Woo-jin said as he climbed aboard the Red Eagle. The Galactic Council sent investigators, but they keep insisting it's some kind of equipment malfunction causing false readings. They won't listen when we tell them that people are actually gone. As they left Europa Station behind, Do-hyun told his friend everything he had learned from his grandfather's recordings. Woo-jin listened with growing amazement and fear. So you're saying that humans used to be galactic warriors, and now some ancient enemy is back to destroy us all? Woo-jin shook his head. 3 days ago, I was worried about computer maintenance schedules. We need to find others, Do-hyun said. My grandfather mentioned that there are other descendants of the Guardians, people like us who carry the original human genetics. Over the next week, they traveled to different human colonies and stations, following leads from his grandfather's files. Most of the people they found were ordinary humans who had no knowledge of the hidden history. But in a small research station orbiting Saturn, they found someone different. Sun-hee Park was a xenoarchaeologist who specialized in studying ancient alien artifacts. When Do-hyun and Woo-jin arrived at her laboratory, they found her surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps and historical data. I've been researching gaps in galactic history for years, she told them. There are 300 years of records that don't make sense, alien civilizations that suddenly changed their technology and culture with no explanation. References to a great war that was somehow erased from official records. Sun-hee was thin and serious, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see more than most people. When Do-hyun showed her his grandfather's recordings, she nodded as if she had been expecting this information. I always knew something was wrong, she said. The aliens treat us like children, but there's fear in their eyes when they think we're not looking. They watch us constantly, as if they're waiting for us to remember something we've forgotten. Can you help us find more people like us? Do-yun asked. I have a list, Sun-hee said, pulling up files on her computer. Families with unusual genetic markers. People whose ancestors seem to have no records from 300 years ago. I thought they might be descendants of secret military units. The first person on her list was named Ji-won Choi. According to Sun-hee's research, she lived on a small agricultural world called New Haven, where she worked as a crop specialist. But when they arrived at her farm, they found something unexpected. Ji-won was waiting for them. She was a woman in her late 20s with strong hands and direct eyes. As their ship landed in her field, she walked toward them, carrying what looked like an energy weapon that Do-yun had only seen in his grandfather's recordings. You must be Min-ho Kim's grandson, she said before Do-yun could introduce himself. I've been expecting you for 3 days now. How did you know we were coming? Woo-jin asked nervously. Ji-won smiled. My family never forgot what we were. We've been keeping the old traditions alive, training with the old weapons, waiting for the call to return. When the disappearances started, my grandmother told me that the time of hiding was ending. She led them to her farmhouse, which looked normal from the outside, but contained a hidden basement filled with equipment that looked like it belonged in a military command center. There are 12 families like mine scattered across human space, Ji-won explained. We call ourselves the Keepers. We've been in contact with each other for generations, sharing information and maintaining our abilities. What abilities? Do-hyun asked. Instead of answering, Ji-won closed her eyes and held out her hand. A small ball of light appeared above her, palm, flickering and dancing like a tiny star. Enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, limited energy manipulation, she said. These are just the basic abilities that remained after 300 years of genetic suppression. According to the old records, humans who were fully awakened could do much more. Sun-hee stared at the light. This is incredible. How many people can do this? Very few, Ji-won said. Maybe 1 in 10,000 humans still carry the genes. But with the right training and the right equipment, even normal humans can learn to access some of these abilities. Over the next few days, more disturbing reports came in from across human space. The disappearances were spreading. Entire colonies were going silent. But each time, the Galactic Council insisted that the problems were caused by equipment failures or communication breakdowns. They're covering it up, Sun-hee said as they reviewed the reports. Just like they covered up the real history. They don't want humans to know that we're under attack. Or maybe, Ji-won said quietly, they're the ones behind the attacks. What do you mean? Do-hyun asked. Think about it, Ji-won continued. For 300 years, they've been afraid that humans might remember what we used to be. Maybe they decided that the best way to prevent that is to make sure we don't exist anymore. That night, as they prepared to return to his grandfather's house, Do-hyun felt something calling to him. It was the same feeling he had experienced when he first touched the symbols on the mysterious door. The arsenal is ready, he said suddenly. I can feel it calling to me. Woo-jin looked concerned. Are you sure about this? Once we open that door, there's no going back to normal life. Do-hyun looked at his friends, these people who had trusted him enough to leave their safe lives and follow him into the unknown. He thought about the thousands of humans who had already disappeared, and the millions more who would follow if nothing was done. Normal life ended the moment the Void Swarm returned, he said. The question now is whether we're going to remember what humans are truly capable of, or whether we're going to disappear quietly into the darkness. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, heading back toward the house among the planets, the mysterious door was already beginning to respond to their approach. Deep within the arsenal of Earth, weapons that had slept for 3 centuries were slowly awakening, as if they could sense that their time of rest was ending. The galaxy was about to remember why it had once feared humanity, and this time there would be no forgetting. When they returned to his grandfather's house, Do-yun could feel the door calling to him stronger than ever. The symbols carved into its surface were glowing bright blue now, pulsing like a heartbeat. As he approached with Wu Jin, Sun-hee, and Ji-won behind him, the door seemed to recognize all of them. "The lock is reading our genetic signatures," Ji-won said, studying the patterns of light. "It knows we're descendants of the original Guardians." Do-yun placed his hand on the center of the door. The moment his skin touched the wood, the symbols flared with brilliant light, and he heard a voice that seemed to speak directly into his mind. "Guardian protocols activated. Threat level confirmed as extinction class. Arsenal access granted to authorized personnel." The door swung open, revealing not another room, but what looked like a tunnel of pure starlight. Beyond the threshold, space itself seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. "It's a dimensional portal," Sun-hee whispered. "The arsenal isn't hidden on this planet. It's hidden in a pocket dimension." They stepped through together, and Do-hyun felt reality shift around them. For a moment, he experienced the strange sensation of being in multiple places at once. Then they were standing on solid ground again, but the world they found themselves in was beyond anything they could have imagined. The arsenal of Earth stretched out before them like a vast underground city, massive chambers filled with weapons, and vehicles that seemed to be made of crystallized light. Ships that looked like they were carved from single pieces of black metal covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Weapons that floated in energy fields, humming with power that made the air itself feel electric. "Welcome to the true heritage of humanity," said a voice behind them. They turned to see a man in his 50s walking toward them. He was tall and moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years training for combat. Behind him came a woman about the same age, her eyes bright with intelligence and something that might have been relief. "I am Kyung-soo Yoon," the man said. "This is Myung-han. We are the current guardians of the arsenal. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." "How long have you been here?" Woo Jin asked, looking around at the impossible technology surrounding them. "Time moves differently in this dimension," Myung explained. "We have been here for what feels like months, but in the outside world it has been only days. The arsenal exists partially outside normal space and time." Kyung-soo led them deeper into the facility, past weapons that seemed to bend light around themselves and vehicles that appeared to be alive, their surfaces shifting and changing like liquid metal. "Your grandfather was one of the original designers of this place," he told Do-hyun. "After the war with the Void Swarm, when humanity chose to forget its true nature, a small group of us created this arsenal as insurance. We knew that someday the threat would return." They entered a vast chamber where the walls were covered with displays showing star maps and tactical information. At the center of the room stood a table covered with what looked like suits of armor, but made from materials that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. "These are the resonance suits," Myung said. "They will help unlock the genetic potential that has been suppressed in your DNA. But I must warn you, the process is irreversible. Once you put them on, you will never be the same." Sun-hee stepped forward to examine one of the suits. "What exactly will happen to us?" "You will become what humans were meant to be," Kyung-soo answered. Enhanced reflexes that allow you to react faster than thought. Pattern recognition so advanced that you can predict enemy movements before they make them. The ability to interface directly with advanced technology using only your mind. And the cost? Ji-won asked. She had been quiet since they arrived, but her eyes showed that she understood. This was a moment that would define everything that came after. The cost is that you can never go back to being ordinary humans, Mi-young said sadly. You will see the galaxy as it really is, not as you have been taught to see it. You will understand threats and possibilities that normal humans cannot comprehend. It can be a lonely existence. Do-yun looked at the suit designed for him. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like wearing a piece of the night sky. Show us what we're fighting against. Show us what the Void Swarm really is. Kyung-soo activated a display that filled the chamber with holographic images. The scene showed creatures that were like living holes in reality, consuming everything they touched and leaving only emptiness behind. But these were not the same enemies from 300 years ago. They have evolved, he explained. The weapons we used against them before will not work now. They have adapted to counter every strategy we employed in the original war. Worse, they have learned to hide their true nature, to appear as normal space phenomena until it is too late. The display showed recent attacks across human space. What the Galactic Council had dismissed as equipment failures were actually surgical strikes by evolved void entities. They were testing human defenses, learning about current technology, preparing for a larger assault. How much time do we have? Woo Jin asked. Days, perhaps weeks, Mi-young replied. They are gathering strength for a full invasion. When it comes, it will make the first war look like a small disagreement. There's something else you need to know, Kyung-soo said grimly. We have discovered evidence that some members of the Galactic Council are working with the Void Swarm. They believe that if humanity is eliminated, the galaxy will finally be safe from our potential for violence. Sun-hee's face went pale. They're using the Void Swarm to finish what they started 300 years ago, complete genocide disguised as a natural disaster. The Keth Moran in particular have been providing intelligence about human colony locations and defensive capabilities, Mi-young added. They think they can control the Void Swarm, use them as a weapon, and then send them away. They don't understand that the Void Swarm cannot be controlled or bargained with. Do-hyun felt anger building inside him, but it was not the simple rage of betrayal. It was something colder and more focused, like a weapon being forged in fire. What do we need to do? First, you must decide if you are willing to pay the price, Kyung-soo said. Putting on these suits will change you in ways you cannot imagine. You will gain abilities that most humans can barely comprehend. But you will also become responsible for the survival of your entire species. Ji-won stepped forward and picked up one of the suits. I've been training for this my whole life. My family never forgot what we were meant to be. Sun-hee nodded and reached for another suit. I've spent years studying the lies we've been told. It's time to learn the truth. Woo Jin looked nervous, but he grabbed a suit as well. My family disappeared because I didn't know how to protect them. I won't let that happen to anyone else. Do-hyun lifted his suit, feeling the strange material respond to his touch. It was warm and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. If we do this, if we become what humans used to be, what happens to the rest of humanity? What happens to the people who chose to remain peaceful? That depends on us, Mi-young said. The original humans became so focused on winning that they forgot what they were fighting to protect. We have a chance to do better, to use our strength not just to destroy our enemies, but to create something worth defending. As they prepared to put on the suits, Alarms suddenly began sounding throughout the arsenal. Displays around the chamber lit up with emergency warnings. "What's happening?" Do-hyun asked. Kyung-soo's face was grim as he read the tactical displays. "The Void Swarm has begun their main assault. Earth itself is under attack." Through the arsenal's sensors, they could see the horror unfolding in Earth's solar system. Tiers in space were opening around humanity's birth world, and through them poured creatures of living darkness that consumed everything in their path. "There's no more time for hesitation," Myung said. "If we're going to save humanity, it has to be now." Do-hyun looked at his friends, these brave people who had followed him into the unknown. Then he looked at the suit in his hands, knowing that putting it on would make him something more and less than human. "Together," he said. They put on the resonant suits at the same time, and Do-hyun felt his world explode into fire and light as 300 years of suppressed human potential awakened all at once. The moment the resonant suit merged with his body, Do-hyun felt like he was being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. Every cell in his body screamed as 300 years of genetic suppression was burned away in seconds. Then, suddenly, the pain stopped and he could see everything. Not just see with his eyes, but see the patterns that connected all things. The flow of energy through the arsenal's walls, the quantum signatures of his friends as their own transformations completed. The distant screams of Earth's population as the Void Swarm descended on humanity's birth world. "The awakening is complete," Kyung-soo said, but his voice sounded different now. Do-hyun could hear layers of meaning in every word, as if language itself had become richer and more complex. "How do you feel?" Do-hyun tried to answer, but found that he was thinking faster than he could speak. In the time it took to form a single word, his enhanced mind had already processed thousands of tactical scenarios for the coming battle. "Different," he finally said. "Everything is so clear now." Woo Jin was staring at his hands, watching energy. Patterns dance across his fingers. "I can feel the arsenal's computer systems, all of them. It's like they're part of my own mind now." Sun-hee had closed her eyes and was seeing something the others could not. "I can perceive multiple timelines," she whispered. "I can see the different ways this war might end. Most of them are not good for us." Ji-won was the most changed of all. The genetic modifications in her family line had been closer to the original human template, and the suit had unlocked abilities that seemed almost magical. She was floating 3 inches off the ground, surrounded by a faint glow that made the air around her shimmer. "We need to move quickly," Myung said, leading them to another section of the arsenal. "The Void Swarm is not just attacking Earth. They're hitting human colonies across 17 star systems simultaneously. They entered a command center where displays showed the scope of the assault. It was worse than anyone had imagined. The evolved void entities were not just consuming matter like their ancestors had done. They were erasing entire timelines, making it so that some places had never existed at all. "Luna Base just disappeared," Kyung-soo reported, his enhanced reflexes, allowing him to process the incoming data streams faster than any normal human could follow. "Not destroyed, erased. According to our sensors, there was never a moon base there." "They're rewriting history as they attack," Sun-hee said, her new abilities allowing her to understand the enemy's strategy. "If they succeed completely, humanity will not just be extinct. We will never have existed in the first place." Do-hyun felt something building inside him, a cold fury that was sharper and more focused than any emotion he had ever experienced. "What do we need to do?" "First, we awaken the rest of humanity," Myung said. The resonance suits can only be worn by people with the right genetics, but we have other tools. She led them to a chamber filled with devices that looked like metallic flowers. Awakening seeds, she explained. We can scatter these across human space. They will seek out humans with dormant genetic markers and activate their suppressed abilities. How many people will be affected? Wu Jin asked. Perhaps 1 in 1,000, Kyung-soo replied. But that will be enough. Awakened humans are exponentially more effective than normal ones. A single enhanced human can coordinate the defense of an entire star system. They spent the next hour loading the awakening seeds into deployment pods and launching them toward human colonies across the galaxy. As the seeds spread, the arsenal's sensors began detecting the first signs of human awakening. On Mars, a cargo handler named Hyun-woo suddenly found himself able to interface directly with the colony's defense systems, coordinating responses to void attacks with superhuman efficiency. On Titan, a scientist named Eunjung discovered she could predict void entity movement patterns and guide evacuation efforts with perfect accuracy. It's working, Sun-hee said, watching the tactical displays. But it's not enough. The void swarm is adapting to our awakened humans almost as quickly as we can create them. Then we need to hit them with something they can't adapt to, Do-hyun said. He could feel the arsenal around him, all the weapons and ships created by the original human warriors. We need to take the fight to them directly. Kyung-soo nodded grimly. The void entities are coming through dimensional gates. If we can reach the gate controllers and destroy them, we can cut off their reinforcements. Where are the controllers? Ji-won asked. According to our sensors, the primary gate is hidden in the outer system, beyond Pluto, Myung said. But it's defended by evolved void entities and ships from the Kathmaran fleet. The aliens who betrayed us, Wu Jin said, his voice cold with anger. They made their way to the arsenal's hangar, where ships unlike anything in the regular galaxy waited for them. The vessel assigned to their mission was called the Starbreaker, and it looked like it had been carved from a single piece of black crystal. As they boarded, Do-hyun felt the ship respond to his presence. The enhanced neural interfaces allowed him to merge his consciousness with the vessel's systems, making the ship an extension of his own body. This is incredible, he said, as they launched from the arsenal. I can feel every system, every weapon. It's like the ship is alive. The journey to the outer system should have taken days, but the Starbreaker moved through space in ways that normal physics could not explain. It slipped between dimensions, taking shortcuts through folded space that cut the travel time to hours. As they approached the location of the primary gate, they found a battle already in progress. Human ships from across the solar system were converging on the void position, but they were being systematically destroyed by enemies they could barely see. The regular human fleets don't stand a chance, Sun-hee observed. Their weapons can't even touch the evolved void entities. Then we clear the path for them, Do-hyun said. The Starbreaker's weapons were unlike anything used in modern warfare. Instead of firing energy beams or projectiles, they rewrote the fundamental laws of physics in small areas of space. Void entities that had seemed invulnerable simply stopped existing when the weapons touched them. But the enemy adapted quickly. Each time they destroyed a group of void entities, the next wave came with defenses specifically designed to counter their attack. Methods. They're learning from every engagement, Ji-won said. We need to end this quickly before they figure out how to neutralize all our advantages. There, Wu Jin pointed to a massive structure that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. That's the gate controller. But look what's guarding it. Around the controller, ships from the Kethmaran fleet were positioned like sentries. These were not the peaceful exploration vessels that most humans were familiar with. They were warships, armed with weapons that the aliens had hidden from the Galactic Council for centuries. "They've been planning this for a long time," Myung said. "The Kethmaran never intended to coexist with humanity. They've been waiting for the right moment to eliminate us entirely." As they approached the enemy fleet, Do-hyun felt something unexpected. Through his enhanced senses, he could detect human life signs aboard some of the alien vessels. "They have prisoners," he said. "Humans from the colonies that were attacked." "A trap," Kyung-soo warned. "They know we won't fire on ships carrying human civilians." "Then we don't fire on the ships," Ji-won said. Her abilities had been growing stronger throughout the battle, and now she was radiating energy that made space itself bend around her. "We board them." What followed was unlike any battle in recorded history. The awakened humans moved through space as if it were water, phasing through enemy hulls and disabling ships from within. Ji-won moved like living lightning, appearing inside alien command centers and neutralizing entire crews before they could react. Sun-hee used her timeline perception to coordinate their attacks, guiding each team member to strike at the exact moment when their actions would have maximum effect. Woo-jin merged his consciousness with the enemy computer systems, turning their own weapons against them. Within minutes, the Kethmoran fleet was neutralized and the human prisoners were free. But the gate controller remained, and through it, more. Void entities were pouring into their dimension. "The controller is protected by reality distortion fields," Kyung-soo said. "Our weapons can't penetrate them." Do-hyun looked at the massive structure, feeling the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on him. Then he had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "What if we don't try to destroy it from the outside?" he said. "What if we go through the gate and attack it from the void dimension?" "That's suicide," Myung said. "No human has ever survived in the void dimension. No normal human," Ji-won corrected. "But we're not normal anymore." Do-hyun felt the rightness of the plan settling into his enhanced mind. The void entities exist in their dimension without protection. If we can survive there, even briefly, we can destroy the controller from within. As they prepared for what might be their final mission, alerts began coming in from across human space. The awakening seeds had done their work. Enhanced humans were coordinating the defense of every major colony, and for the first time since the attacks began, humanity was fighting back effectively. But the war was far from over. Everything would depend on whether 4 awakened humans could survive in a dimension of pure nothingness. The Starbreaker passed through the dimensional gate, and Do-hyun felt reality tear apart around them. For a moment that lasted forever, they existed in the space between spaces, where the laws of physics meant nothing and thought itself could reshape matter. Then they emerged into the void dimension, and Do-hyun understood why no normal human had ever survived here. This was a place where existence itself was under constant attack. The very air tried to unweave their bodies at the molecular level. The darkness pressed against their minds, trying to convince them that they had never been born. "Stay focused on each other," Sun-hee called out, her timeline perception allowing her to navigate the shifting reality around them. "Don't let the void make you forget who you are." Through the crystalline hull of their ship, they could see the true scope of the enemy. The Void Swarm was not just a collection of creatures. It was a single vast intelligence that existed across multiple dimensions, using the individual entities as extensions of its will. There, Ji-won pointed to a structure that seemed to be made of crystallized nothingness. That's the master controller. It's what coordinates all the dimensional gates. But between them and their target was something that made Do-hyun's enhanced mind recoil in horror. The evolved void entities were not the mindless destroyers they had appeared to be. Here in their home dimension, they showed their true nature as architects of oblivion, beings that had once been living creatures from countless galaxies before being transformed into servants of emptiness. They were like us once, Wu Jin whispered, his technological interface abilities allowing him to read the data patterns surrounding the creatures. Entire civilizations consumed and converted into tools of destruction. And that's what they want to do to humanity, Kyung-soo said grimly. Transform us into another weapon in their arsenal of extinction. The Void Intelligence noticed their presence and responded with an attack that came from all directions at once. Reality twisted around the Starbreaker as weapons that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously tried to erase them from existence. But the ship held together, protected by technologies that the original human warriors had designed specifically for warfare in impossible conditions. Do-hyun merged his consciousness more deeply with the vessel's systems, feeling his human identity stretch across quantum fields and probability matrices. I can't maintain this much longer, he said through gritted teeth. The ship's defenses are incredible, but this place is trying to unmake us faster than we can repair ourselves. Then we end this now, Ji-won said. Her abilities had been growing stronger since they entered the void dimension, as if the raw chaos of this place was feeding her power. Wu Jin, can you interface with the master controller? I think so, he replied, but I'll need a direct connection. Someone has to get me close enough to touch it. Sun-hee closed her eyes and examined the timelines spreading out from this moment. I can see a path, she said. But it requires all of us to work together in perfect coordination. And even then, our chances of survival are less than 30%. What about humanity's chances if we fail? Do-hyun asked. 0%, she replied simply. They abandoned the Starbreaker and continued toward the Master Controller using only their enhanced abilities. Ji-won created fields of coherent energy that allowed them to move through the hostile environment. Sun-hee guided them along the one timeline where success was possible. Kyung-soo and Mi-young used their combat training to clear away the void entities that tried to stop them. As they got closer to the controller, Do-hyun began to understand what they were really fighting. The Void Swarm was not evil in any way that humans could comprehend. It was something far worse. It was order taken to its ultimate extreme, a force that sought to end all chaos, all growth, all possibility by reducing everything to perfect, eternal nothingness. It thinks it's saving the universe, he realized. By destroying everything, it believes it's preventing all future suffering. That's why it can't be reasoned with, Mi-young said. From its perspective, it's performing the ultimate mercy. They reached the base of the Master Controller, and Wu Jin pressed his hands against its surface. Immediately, his consciousness was pulled into a data network that spanned dimensions, connecting every void entity across the galaxy. I'm in, he said, his voice echoing strangely as part of his mind interfaced with alien systems. But the controller is learning from me as fast as I'm learning from it. I can shut down the dimensional gates, but only if I stay connected. And if I stay connected much longer, it will learn everything about human technology. Do it, Do-hyun said. We'll find another way home. Wu Jin's sacrifice was immediate and total. He poured his consciousness into the Master Controller, using his enhanced abilities to create feedback loops that would destroy the gate network. But as he worked, the void intelligence was downloading everything it could about human capabilities and weaknesses. "The gates are closing," Sun He reported, watching probability streams shift around them. "But the void intelligence now knows how to counter our enhanced abilities. When it attacks again, we won't have the same advantages. Then we make sure there is no next time," Jiwan said. She had been gathering energy throughout their mission, and now she released it all at once. The power that erupted from her was not just electromagnetic force, but something deeper. She was channeling the fundamental creative force that opposed the void's desire for nothingness. The explosion tore through the master controller and spread across the void dimension like wildfire. But instead of destroying the void entities, something unexpected happened. The creative force that Jiwan had unleashed began to restore them to what they had been before their transformation. Across the dimension, creatures that had been tools of extinction for millions of years suddenly remembered what they had lost. Entire species that had been consumed by the void began to reform, their original natures reasserting themselves against the artificial order that had enslaved them. The void intelligence itself began to change, exposed to the raw possibility that humans represented. It started to question its own purpose. For the first time in eons, it considered that maybe existence was preferable to the perfect peace of nothingness. "It's working," Kyung-soo said in amazement. "You're not destroying them. You're healing them." But the effort was killing Jiwan. The amount of energy she was channeling was more than any human, even an enhanced one, could sustain. She looked at Do-hyun with eyes that were already beginning to fade. "Tell them," she whispered. "Tell humanity that our greatest weapon was never our ability to destroy. It was our ability to hope, to create, to believe that tomorrow could be better than today." She collapsed, but her sacrifice had changed everything. The dimensional gates were closed. The void entities were remembering their true natures, and the intelligence that had threatened the galaxy was learning to value existence over extinction. Do-hyun, Sun-hee, Kyung-soo, and Mi-young found themselves back in normal space, somehow transported there by the reformed void intelligence as a gesture of gratitude. Around them, the galaxy was awakening to a new reality. Across human space, the awakened humans were not returning to their previous lives. Instead, they were using their enhanced abilities to help other species develop their own potential. The genetic modifications that had suppressed human capabilities were being reversed, but not to create warriors. They were being reversed to create teachers, healers, and guardians. The Galactic Council, faced with the truth about the Keth-Moran betrayal and humanity's role in saving everyone, was forced to acknowledge that the peaceful junior members they had protected were actually their protectors. But humans made a choice that surprised the galaxy. Instead of demanding recognition or reparations, they offered partnership. The enhanced abilities that had made them feared were put to use helping other species unlock their own hidden potential. Do-hyun returned to his grandfather's house among the planets, but it was no longer a secret refuge. It had become a school where children from dozens of species learned together, developing abilities that their parents had never dreamed possible. The quantum door that had once led to a hidden arsenal now opened onto classrooms where former enemies worked side by side. Human children learned alongside young Keth-Moran, the two species working together to understand and develop abilities that transcended the limitations of any single race. "Grandpa would be proud," Do-hyun said one day as he watched a human girl and a Keth-Moran boy work together to create a small star in the palm of their hands. their combined abilities achieving what neither could accomplish alone. Sun Hee, who had become the school's head researcher, smiled as she watched the children. He always said that humanity's greatest strength was not our ability to fight, but our ability to grow beyond our limitations and help others do the same. In the distance, ships designed by human engineers and powered by technology from a dozen different species patrolled the galaxy. But they were not warships. They were exploration vessels, carrying mixed crews to find new worlds and new possibilities. The Void Swarm, transformed by humanity's gift of creative hope, had become something new. They called themselves the Weavers now, and they used their vast intelligence to help repair the damage they had once caused. Worlds that had been erased from existence were carefully reconstructed, their timelines rewoven with the patience of beings who had learned to value what they had once sought to destroy. Wu Jin's sacrifice had not been in vain. Though his body had been lost in the void dimension, his consciousness had merged with the galaxy's data networks, becoming a guardian intelligence that watched over all sentient life. Sometimes, when Do-Yun was working late in the school's laboratories, he would hear his friend's voice in the computer systems, offering advice or simply reminding him that no one was ever truly alone. The galaxy had learned that strength without wisdom was destruction, but wisdom without strength was helplessness. Humanity had found the balance between the two, and in teaching others to find that same balance, they had created something that had never existed before in the long history of the cosmos. A civilization based not on dominance or submission, but on the infinite potential for growth that existed in every thinking being. The inheritance that Do-Hyun had received from his grandfather was not just a house or weapons or even enhanced abilities. It was the responsibility to ensure that the galaxy's children, no matter what species they belonged to, would inherit a universe where hope was stronger than fear, where creation was valued more than destruction, and where every being had the chance to become more than they had ever dreamed possible. As he watched the mixed groups of children playing in the garden behind the house, their laughter echoing among the alien trees, Do-Hyun knew that humanity had finally found its true place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as gardeners of possibility in an infinite cosmos full of wonder.